Hooray! Hi friends, today is very exciting. I'm going to try and turn all of these, well, these 4 flask sides here into a fully functioning flask. I'm not 100% sure yet on how the pin mechanism is going to be done. I've got a few ideas. So the overall design is still based on Tobo's pin design. Okay, I'm going to cut in real quick. So here is Tobo's design. It's very clever. This is his image from his thread on flask hardware on the Alloy Avenue forum. There's a link to this forum page and Tobo's channel below, and a link to the video where Tobo makes his pins. This video is where I first saw these. All the links are in the description. Now, I'm sure others do this too, but Tobo is the first person I've seen explain it so simply, and I've only been looking since this project started. So on this photo you can see that there are 2 pins, which will be attached to the cope like normal. But instead of having 2 holes on the drag to receive those pins, Tobo has a hole on one side and a slot on the other. Now this may seem weird at first, but it's to prevent everything from binding up, and I think this is particularly important in all metal flasks. Because if everything is made of metal, there's no natural give in the flask, like there is with a wooden one. So as things expand and contract with heat, or maybe some sand or dirt gets stuck in one of the holes, the pins can get severely stuck. But if one of the holes is turned into a slot, this should help prevent the binding. So the plan is to basically do that on my flask. This is what my flask ends look like, with the handles or bolt holders already cast into it, from using the handle module in the pattern. So if I use this image as an example, on one side I'll try to carefully drill 4 holes in a straight line. Then I can attach the pin using nuts. The pin will be made from a long bolt, just like Tobo's. I haven't decided how long to make the pins yet. I'll probably go with long ones. I can always shorten them later. And on the other side of the flask, I can drill 4 holes again, but make the 2 lower holes, the drag holes, into slots, and then attach a pin to that side too. So hopefully with this arrangement, I'll still be able to open and close the flask, even if it's got hot and something has expanded or if it's a bit grubby. So in a nutshell, on one side will be a pin going through holes, and on the other side will be a pin going through slots. Well, that's the theory, and on the thread where I saw Tobo's original image, others were saying they also do this, and it makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for the help on this, Tobo. As a little side note, these bolts will be 8mm in diameter, but if I make a mistake, I can go up to 10mm holes and bolts. I've also found some very cheap 10mm diameter lighting or chandelier tubing, which has an internal diameter of 6.5mm, and I've found a guy on eBay selling 6.5mm steel rod. So I could always Loctite some 10mm tubes into the drag and cope handles, and then use the rod as the pin, and just use Loctite to put it into the cope's tube. Actually, the beauty of this rod and sleeve version is it avoids using the soft aluminium as a wearing surface, but I might be worrying unnecessarily on that, we'll see. If the regular steel bolts wear out the holes in the aluminium drag and make them too big and a bit sloppy, I can always re-drill everything to 10mm later, and then I can either use 10mm bolts or use the 10mm lighting tubes, I hope. So that's essentially the plan. A pin and a hole on one side, and a pin and a slot on the other. I've got these 8 sides here. Actually, you can see I've got the progression of my castings here. I've got version 2, really heavy. I mean, that is so heavy. And obviously it had all the cold welds and all that kind of thing going on. Then I had version 3, which was a lot less heavy, but still blooming heavy. Then I've got the version 6 prototypes, which are the ones here. Now I have, just incidentally, I have gone one stage further. This is the 6.8. So I think these are 6.7. It's very easy for me to lose track, but this is 6.8. And as you can see, I've reduced the ribs even further. This is just an experiment to do after the first flask is made, but I thought I'd talk about it now. Everything's a lot slimmer and thinner, and I think that might help with the bending problem I've been getting. Even if it's just a little bit, that would be nice. But I've also included these lovely corners that Wargrade came up with. And the nice thing about those corners is, I hope, we'll see, when I join them together, I won't need to drill holes in the corners. So that's a really nice idea. I don't know if it'll work, but it's worth a go, I reckon. So this is 6.8, and I'll get around to casting that when I get time. But for today, I want to try and make these 8 sides into a drag and a cope. I may not get time to make the pins today. I've actually got some bits coming in and they're not here yet, so I'm not fully prepared, especially if I have to go to a larger hole size and I screw up the 8mm holes. But we'll have to see how it goes. Oh, talking of which. Right, enough jibber jabber. Let's assemble this flask. On each part, I remove the gate and very lightly sand the top and bottom surfaces, just to remove any obvious bumps. This is literally as much as I did, hardly anything at all. Then I give a quick sand to the 45-degree wing surfaces, followed by a quick filing. Then I marked up where to drill the holes with this 3D printed guide. It sort of fits nicely on the part. And I'm just going to mark them all up and drill them on the drill press as accurately as I can. Oh, what if we could do a modular 1 pour? That would be cool. Another time maybe. Right then, let's drill those holes. Just to be safe, I also scribed some lines to show where the punch marks are, so that I can see where the centre of each hole should be while I'm drilling them. Alright, time to make these holes. I first drill some pilot holes. Yeah, I accidentally broke a drill bit off in the aluminium. Big mistake. I managed to drill the high-speed steel drill bit that had snapped off and got stuck in the aluminium. I managed to punch it out from the other side. That was a real nightmare. I've never had to do that before. That was really tough. Anyway, I've used a bigger drill bit now, and that's sort of made the hole nice and round again. Now I've moved to a 9mm drill bit. In the end, I went with 9mm for the final hole size. The bolts are 8mm, and I'm hoping that these slightly oversized holes will give me a little play when I'm bolting the sides together. Right, it's time. Let's bolt these sides together. Okay. Here are the sides. They look really nice, the holes. I haven't really decided which ones will go with which. I'm just going to randomly pick sides and then we'll see how it goes. Okay. Let's see how they go. Bear in mind, the long sides are slightly bent. Let me do this one first, then you can see. I'm not sure these are long enough. I have ordered some more, but they're just not arrived yet. So big washer, nylock. They could be just big enough. Washer. But the holes seem to line up. And there's a little bit of play, which is what I wanted. I've no idea whether these nylon inserted nylock nuts are the right tools for this job. Just seem like a good idea. They may well melt, I guess. But like everything on this project, I'm sort of making it up as I go along. Well, that's all finger tight. Oh my God, it looks amazing! Lovely and rigid. So you can see there's a little bit of gaps on each corner. Now let's try and tighten these up, see what happens. I might move these across to my casting bench over there, because that's like an old kitchen worktop and it's nice and flat. This carpet isn't very flat, nor is the steel under it. Although, I do have this quite nice and flat bit of melamine. It's a shelf from the old kitchen cabinet. That might do it. Oh my God. That is pretty good. Oh my God, I don't want to get too excited. I'm going to do up these nuts. That's actually... So what's the difference there? That's like a hair. Perfect. Let's do these up a bit tighter. Seems like 13mm spanners are the way forward. Now, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just going to do them up and try and keep these end bits roughly right, and then we'll just see how it goes. 1, 2. Might do opposite corners. It's perfect! Ah, no idea if it's square. So that's a little bit more than 90. That one's like half a degree less than 90. That one's bang on 90. That one's bang on 90. Wow! So this one I could do with tightening up because it's... Well, I guess I could tighten them all up. They all seemed okay. Last one. Would you hear the tone go up? Perfectly flat. Oh, I'd call that 90.5 a degree. That's like 89.5. That's bang on 90. And that's bang on 90. Actually, that is pretty much bang on 90 as well. Wow! I don't know whether to put Loctite on it. Oh, this surface here is perfect. Well, let's do the next one on top of this one. I can actually feel that this piece here, even though I can feel that the bottom surface is perfect, it's all flat, but this end piece here is a bit proud of these two. These are perfect here. I think that needs a tiny sand back to meet these two. So let's put that aside for a second and do these ones. And I just hope I get lucky again. I'm not putting these on in any particular direction or... God, they look really cool looking. Really pretty. I'd never have thought it. I'm so proud of it. I mean, I'm so proud of everyone. It's basically a little visualization of everyone's hard work. I just love it. God, if this fits nicely, I just can't believe how brilliant and fun this project has been. I've not been sleeping very well actually last week. I've been so nervous about drilling the holes, and they seem to be spot on. Right. Now this one, ooh, interesting. This end piece seems a tiny bit low there. Tiny bit. Now these are only done up, well, they're actually less than finger tight. Let me do them up finger tight. So that is dead flat. Dead flat. So that looks like it's about 91. That's about 91 and a half. 91 and a quarter. 91 and a quarter. Okay. This one is the biggest, so I'm going to tighten this one up first. And again, I'll do it in stages. Perfect. Seems a bit high there. They meet nicely, they meet nicely. This far corner seems a bit above this one. Well, they're all perfect on the bottom, obviously, because there's no wobble. Oh God, dare I put them together? I don't think they'll fit perfectly because that there needs a bit of a sand back. But let's just put them together, see what it looks like. But look at that. Perfect. So I might mark these with an arrow pointing to the good edge. Do you know what? That's almost perfect. I mean, it's like 2 hairs breadths different. Oh, it's a bit worse that way around. Right, well, I don't think that was gonna work because I'm fitting a flat side with a non-flat side. Let's try it the other way round. Oh, that's flat still. So this way might be okay. It's perfect. It's perfect. Oh my God. It looks so cool. Well, I never. Look at that. I can't believe how unbelievably good it looks and fits. It fits amazingly. It is brilliant. Now I just have to work out how to do the pins. Let me show you a bit better now. So my plan is just to drill through these 2 and 1 more. Well, I'll probably go through all 4. And then if you imagine this is the other one, drill through these 2 and then on these 2 have a slot. Just lovely. My God, I don't care. I can't even see if this is exposed properly or not. This thing is incredible. It's not got any registration pins yet, but it sits lovely and flat with itself. I've only got it on the carpet for noise purposes. It was completely flat on the melamine sheet as well, on this bottom surface. I think this top surface is the least flat, but the other three, the bottom of this one, the top of this one, and the bottom of that one, are pretty spot on. God, thank you so much, everyone. I feel so much better about it, having put them together. And I literally done no prep. I've done no sanding or anything. Like that there, this one is a little bit high over that one. It's 3 days later, and I'm going to try and finish the flask today. The first job is to make the 2 pins. I cut the heads off the bolts. And round over the cut ends on the grinder and sand them to a decent finish. These ends are now the pointy ends of the pins. So it's only tapered in the last centimetre, just enough to help guide it in the hole. Now I need to make some washers that will make the nuts press down nicely onto the 7-degree taper of the handles. To do this, I found some pipe in my scrap box. So if I cut this nicely, I'll end up with 1 cut for 2 washers. And I've 3D printed these little guides that are flat on one side and have a 7-degree slope on the other. I use the guides to mark up the flat cuts and the 7-degree cuts too. This job was actually very easy with the guides, it worked out well. I've decided to spend some time flattening the sides of the flask. 0.5 millimetre taller there. Now I've got to be a bit careful because even though it is tall there, it still sits nicely on its surface. Each corner is together on a flat plane. I mark any high spots and sand them back with a well-worn flap disc. That's a lot better. Then any new wobble that occurred due to the flattening was removed by removing material on a neighbouring corner. This was actually a lot easier than I imagined, and I needn't have worried about it. It's very simple. Nice! Now I've adjusted the heights of all the corners. They're much more forgiving on the, it's basically flat everywhere now. That is just super, super awesome. Now it's time to drill the holes for the pins. Oh God. 3D printed another little template, and this one is for marking the drill hole. Spot on. There we go. Perfect. This worked a treat. Now I want to keep the cope and drag firmly fixed to each other when I drill the holes, so that at the very least the 4 holes are drilled in a straight line, so I need to clamp them together. This could have been a lot easier if I had little tabs, like mini handles on the end plates, in this sort of position. Perhaps a little single tab module would be a good idea, or I could put them on the corner modules maybe. Anyway, something to think about for the future. So in the absence of some cast-in clamp tabs, I've clamped the cope and drag together Heath Robinson style, using an old kitchen cabinet shelf and some all thread. Let's drill this baby all the way through. Fingers crossed. Right, I've been worrying about drilling these holes a lot, mainly because my drill press is a bit wonky on the best of days, and it only has about 5 centimeters of drill depth. I can raise and lower the platform to compensate for this, but this isn't the most accurate procedure, and when I do, the bed is also free to swing left and right, so it's losing its position. I wish I could clamp the swinging left and right movement and then raise and lower the bed, but I can't, so I have to make do. I might clamp that to there as well. Now unfortunately I can't clamp the work and still lower it. I can clamp this whole platform But then when I lower, if I have to lower it, which I will, because my drill only goes down that far, it's a little bit complicated, but we'll have to just manage. I start with a pilot hole, and then I go for a 5mm drill bit. I soon notice that the drill bit is flexing though, so I just go straight to the 8mm. This shouldn't flex as much. Right, I work my way down through the handles. Right, let's take it over to the bench and have a look. Time to see if a pin will fit in it. The holes look good. Unfortunately my drill press, the base of it isn't the best. I put in the pin and I include those little 7-degree washers I made to sit next to the aluminium handle surfaces. I'm actually going to put a mark on it at its fattest point. That should be pointing outwards. I'm guessing it's about there somewhere. It's not the most accurately cut thing, so I don't think it matters if it's going to be slightly out. So that goes there. Oh, the washer looks great. Well, if anything, I think the pin might be a bit long. Due to my drill press, the pin looks like it's like a degree that way. Bit of a shame, but it doesn't matter as long as they're in a straight line. Oh, I think we're going to get away with it. Just below the bottom there. Let me do that up. Looks to be about like that. There. And tighten it all up. Those 7-degree washers work really well. Okay. Well, that is tight. I didn't want to go crazy. I don't know. I've never worked with aluminium before. I don't want it to kind of break off on me. I'll just get rid of this clamp. Well, there's no play. Still flat. Brilliant. No play whatsoever. So that's one pin done. Okay, now I need to drill the other side. I've removed the wooden clampy thing, and instead I'm just clamping with this large G-clamp the whole thing together, but also to the base. There is still a little bit of movement in my bed, which is really annoying. I'm going to go straight for the 8. Oh yeah, I'm all the way through. Will this open? It might not. Oh, I've never experienced binding before. It's crazy. Oh no, it's binding. Now, there's something weird. Let's do this. Just the same. So that's kind of good news. It means that my holes aren't too insanely different. Okay, so I need to make one for a slot, as was the plan. Oh, it goes down nicely though. So which one do I do? Oh, that one does look wonky. A little bit. Yeah, it does a bit. Now why is that? Must be my drill press. This one looks better. Well, that's disappointing. It's out by, well, from the very top to the bottom, it's out by like 1 millimetre at the bottom. But it's enough to notice. That is annoying. I'm a bit disappointed by that. Still, there's not a lot I can do about it now. I do need to do the slots. So that's what I'll do now. I'll do the slots on this end. There we go. Yeah, I'm a bit gutted that hole is a bit wonky. It's only a little bit wonky, but still, it was definitely my drill press though, and the awkward Heath Robinson clamp. I think having some little tabs for the clamps would certainly improve the hole quality. At least the holes are straight with each other, but that is certainly something I need to work on for any future flasks I make. So it comes up, if I could just keep it perfectly level, it would be alright, but it keeps kind of binding. I totally get it now. Gosh, I guess you just don't get that with wood because it all flexes. Oh, I tell you what though, interesting. It only binds when it's on one hole. It only binds when the pin is going through both. Let me just try it. Maybe I just need to shorten the pin. Yeah. I know, it does bind. Way less though. Yeah, it does bind, but it's not as much. I'll cut both as slots. I can always shorten the pin later. Tell you what though, if you can drill better holes than me, you'll have a better result than me. They were not good holes, but it looks like they're good enough. I need to sort that out for next time. I wonder if even manual holes would have been better. It's like I set it up to go slightly one degree off to the side. Really annoying. Okay, time to make these two holes into two slots. I first mark up the handles. I do need the slot to go in further too, beyond the hole. Bigger. So I think I'm going to use the disc cutter first. I don't know if you can see, I've got two little lines I need to stay within. I'm going to try and take the middle of each slot out with that, and then I'm going to try and go with a file. Okay, I was maybe a little bit too careful. Oh, the file is binding. I'm going to try that. That's nearly there. It's probably too tight still. Time to test it. Ooh. So the slot is at this end. Pin goes in. Oh, that is so much easier. That's it. I don't need to do any more. That's it. That is literally it. Hooray! Actually, so I've got it sideways, nice, but I haven't gone down enough. Okay, it was still binding a little because I can still see the original holes at the back of these slots. So I'm just going to take a round file and one that's hopefully not too big. No, that's too big. And just enlarge the back. There we go. Oh, lovely. And no movement. Need to kind of get to grips, learn how to use this slightly differently. Oh, yes. Oh, you little beauty. Still binds a little. So if I'm a little, I think it's because the pins are so long. If I rock like this, obviously this pin hits the, I don't want to make the slot too massive in, if you see what I mean. So I think that's okay, because I'm not going to put it in like that. I am going to put it in level and try and remove it level. And if it is level-ish, it comes out lovely. Like that. Hooray! Hip hip hooray! Let me give you a shot of this. So that's the whole side. Perfect. And let's face it, if you can drill a straighter hole than that, you'll get a better flask than that. Actually, this one's not too bad. That's probably only 0.5 millimeter off. The other one, the slot side, that was a lot worse. Still works though. I guess it would, because they're all straight lines still. Plus, don't forget, one day, if these pins, if I find they're not right, I can go to 10 millimeter. I don't want to, but it's an option. Hooray! The flask works! Ooh! Wow! Oh, it's super great. It's super awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for your help. Thank you so, so much. This is a massive joint effort. And from just the simple idea of wanting a modular pattern system, this prototype at least proves that the kind of pattern system can work. I'm super chuffed. Whoop, whoop. Oh, I'll be able to sleep well tonight. Well, I've made a metal flask. At last. It's not perfect, but I love it. I think it'll definitely work as intended, and I can't wait to try it out. I guess this now proves that the modular flasks concept can at least work. I think this is maybe the first time anyone's done separate modules for a modular pattern for flasks, so that is very cool. I'm just glad I got a flask at the end of it. Even though this flask is good, I think my next flask will be much better, and I won't have to add modules that aren't needed too. And I was a tad disappointed with the slightly off-kilter slot end holes, but once the slots were put in, it all worked fine. I guess it shows that even with a dodgy drill press and slightly dodgy holes, you can make it work. Also, I'm not sure the pins need to go through all 4 handles. It may just complicate matters. I might do the next flask with shorter pins. My next flask will be smaller too. This one I made purposefully big to test the limits of the patterns. I think everything would be a lot easier on a smaller one, particularly if it was your first go. In fact, I'd like to urge anyone to try to make a flask, in whatever method you fancy. I just started this whole thing because I wanted to make a metal flask. And once I came up with the modules idea, I realised it might be of some benefit to others. In fact, if I hadn't put it all up on YouTube, I'd have probably settled for something way less useful, and way earlier too. So it's been a hard old slog, but very rewarding. I will definitely still use wooden flasks. They are so easy to make, especially once you've made a metal one. You realise how easy wooden flasks are. They just have a limited lifetime is all. But I will no doubt cast other kinds of metal flasks in the future. Perhaps a single pour flask next. Maybe I'll think about doing a modular single pour flask. Who knows? Here are some conclusions I've made about the modular flask method over more conventional flask making methods. Now bear in mind I've not made a conventional flask before, but I think these are fairly obvious. So the single pour flask, i.e. a drag all in one go or a cope all in one go, has pros and cons. The pro is it's a single pour, so time saved when making the castings. That is huge, and less assembly time is required. Now the cons. the flask will probably be small. The whole thing is much more restricted by your current flask sizes. Yes, you can make a larger wooden flask, but you're going to have to fit the whole metal flask inside it. You can only make one size of flask. If you want to change the design at all, you have to make a whole new flask pattern. The pattern may require some considerable skill or equipment or materials to make. The patterns will probably need quite a bit of time with finishing, filling, sanding, that kind of thing. So in general, I think the pattern will require considerable man hours to make. Also, you have to make a pattern as well as cast the flask. Also, as it's a one pour kind of deal, your final flask size is quite limited by your crucible size, how much aluminium you can pour in one go. So now the modular flask pros and cons. Some of these pros and cons are shared with any method where you make sides individually. So, pros. You can make larger flasks for the same equipment. You can fit larger single sides in your current flask, so you can make a very big flask in the end if you want to. You can reuse the same modules to make different patterns of different sizes. I'm hoping eventually the patterns will be standardized, so if someone comes up with an interesting module, for instance war grades corners, you can print them and then add them to your current stable of modules. Many brains can come up with very cool solutions. Perhaps someone has a brilliant idea. Well, you can benefit from that, and you can change the design of the pattern very easily. There is no prep required for the modules themselves. I didn't do any. Also, the patterns took almost no man hours to make. I literally just set up the printer and pressed go. So you only have to do the casting. Zero skill is required to make the patterns. Now the cons. Multiple pours and castings are required, so the whole thing takes a lot longer and much more assembly is required. Also, you need access to a 3D printer. No single method of making a flask is right or wrong. They're all just different. Ultimately, your needs will dictate what kind of flask you make. If you're a great woodworker and only need smaller flasks, then a single pour would probably be best. If you don't want to design and make patterns yourself, you could go down the modular flasks route. You could print some modules or get someone else to print them for you, and you're ready to cast flask sides. With that in mind, I think it's time to release this version of the Modular Flask Patterns so someone else can have a play with them. All the files will be released under a Creative Commons Attribution Share-alike 4.0 international license. Blimey, what a mouthful! This basically means that anyone can do anything with the Modular Flask design. So that's copying, altering, even selling them if you want to, as long as they release their own versions or designs under the same very open license. I'm hoping that this will be the best license for the community. Some caveats and disclaimers. Only I've printed these patterns so far. While I purposely made them super easy to print with no big overhangs, no one else has tested them yet. In fact, I'd love a few volunteers to print a few pieces for me on their own 3D printers and tell me how they fit. Even better, if they could post them to me, that would be amazing. Then I can see for myself. If you're in the UK and would be willing to do this for me, let me know in the comments. I've also noticed that orientation on the print bed matters. Printing the modules side by side, left to right, made everything fit slightly better. One last thing about the casting of the sides. I did demonstrate that feeders aren't needed at the fat column piece or the handle piece, but if you want a perfect side with no shrinkage, then feeders are a necessity. You will get shrinkage without them. I just wanted to find the easiest solution to making a flask, which is why I did the experiments with no feeders. Also, perhaps in later experiments, for instance with the even slimmer 6.8 version I've already mentioned, then feeders will be even more unnecessary, but we'll have to see. Also, I used a very nice LM25 aluminium alloy. It was actually very cheap, but it was lovely stuff. If you use random bits and bobs of aluminium with loads of crud in it, you might not get the same results. Just something to bear in mind. I've got lots of non-flask based things to cast. In fact, last night I designed a new sand sieve for the workshop, a cast one. Actually, the funny thing is, it looks a lot like a one-pour flask design. I guess I'll try to properly make a single pour flask sometime. That would be another fun rabbit hole to dive down, but I don't think I'll be doing that straight away. In fact, I'm hoping our Foundryman will release a flask design one day. As you all know, he's not been very well, so I'm not sure on the progress of that, but I know he has something in the works. As the first time I wanted to make my own flask design, about a year ago, I asked him for some tips or a design I could use. And he told me way back then that he planned on making something himself. So when Martin releases his, I'll probably make one of those too. I have no idea what kind of flask it will be, but I look forward to it. I'm sure it'll be awesome. The more flask designs out there, the better. If someone watching has got a good idea for a flask design, make it, please, and then show us all how you did it. The sharing of ideas is what the internet is about, and you might even inspire someone else to try it themselves, and perhaps even better, they might even improve on it. This is why I love the casting community. All this sharing of methods and info is of huge benefit to everyone. It's been very interesting to think about these different approaches when trying to find a solution to what is at first a seemingly simple problem, making a metal flask, but in reality is actually quite complex. Cast metal flasks are very interesting things to try and make and require considerable effort to do so. If I've even helped reduce the barrier slightly that was preventing you from trying yourself, I am more than happy with that. I'd love someone to try and make something with these modular flask parts. I'm definitely going to carry on with it myself, and I've got plans to make other modules too. There's an end-on opening module, so you can make a flask a bit like the ones jewelers make. There's a snap flask corner module that's hinged, and I'm sure there'll be others too. Not only have I learnt loads about 3D printing and design in general while doing this project, I've also learnt loads about casting too, and I'm very grateful for that. And I'm especially grateful for all your help on this. I've tried my best to mention people and their awesome contributions as and when it's popped up, but inevitably I'm sure I will have missed someone. So if that's you, I am very sorry. It's not intentional. I've also had so many messages and comments with brilliant advice and ideas that I'd just like to say thank you to all of you. It's been the most fun aspect of the project for me, getting to chat with you all and getting to know you better. Anyway, I can't really believe what a cool looking prototype flask has come from all this. And really, this is just a prototype. Give me a week to tidy up my files and I'll release everything. Also, when I get time, I'll release a deeper sided version too. Keep an eye out in the description of this video. I'll post any relevant links to files there. Subscribe and hit that stupid bell to keep up to date with it all. Right, finally, that's it. I'll still do videos on anything exciting that happens with the project, like new modules or new designs, but overall I think that's it for this main Modular Flasks series. Once again, this is to all of you. Thank you very, very much for your help. You guys have been awesome. Finally, I have a metal flask. Even though it's a slightly large and oddly sized one. Bye!